Okay, so now that we have the Inkbird Plus unboxed, we're ready to set it up. So basically to use it, all you need is your bags, of course some electricity, and to plug it in. Plug's conveniently located on the back side. Now here in the US we use AC current. It's pretty simple. There isn't a top or a bottom to this plug, so you can plug it in this way. You can also plug it in this way. So it is not polarized. It is not a grounded plug. I don't necessarily think you're going to be using this at the campground or anything fun like that, so you should be okay at your countertop with this, but probably wouldn't be using it barefoot standing on soil. So it's very easy to use. You can either use the pre-made bags that come with it. So a pre-made bag, basically you buy them online, or the ones that come with are all going to be set sizes. So like you'll have a quart size or a pint size. I've got a couple gallon size bags. I make my own smaller bags. So a pre-made bag like this actually can be used a couple times. What you would do is, let's say that you have this large bag. Well, I'm going on a camping trip. I actually only need 3 small bags. I can use the bag cutter that's on top of this and actually just slide that over the top and it cuts it. Again, go down to the middle of this, and I'm just going to cut this bag into 3s. By sliding that on there, it allows me to cut this. Now, all I have to do is get it inside of here, put one side on that copper sealing membrane, push both sides down. Now I have food dry and moist over here, but all I'm doing is sealing it. So instead of drawing the vacuum and the seal, which is basically this one for 2 different settings, and I use the vacuum seal button, first all I'm going to do is do seal. Seal's going to put that closed end on this little baggie for me. It's all done once the light stops going that direction. Press the 2 releases on the sides, and now I've got a perfectly made baggie. Now that perfectly made baggie is for things if I'm going on a trip. A lot of times when I'm going kayaking, canoeing, things like that, I'm going to make a couple meals ahead of time. Some of them are pre-cooked, some of them are freeze-dried, some of them are raw. You know, this particular time, I'm going with a medium rare and a medium steak. I'm going to slide those in there. Whoops. If you ever hit the wrong button, just hit the stop. But basically, once I've got my food in there, I'm going to close it back up. Now this time, I want to actually draw a vacuum out of there. These steaks are pre-cooked, so they're a little on the moist side. So I'm going to switch this over to food moist. That way when it's vacuuming, when it hits the first level of its vacuum, it stops. That way it doesn't draw the liquids out. But I'm going to hit vacuum and seal. There wasn't a whole lot of air in there because, well, these steaks are very flat. But once it's done sealing, light stops oscillating, and I'm good to go. Release it again, and now I've got a vacuum sealed bag. Do that with another small amount of treats here, one that has a little bit better contrast. So again, we're going to take this, we're going to seal just the bottom of our bag. And it doesn't matter. Let's say that I'm cold, I'm fidgeting, and I have a really horrible angle like this, so I didn't get it sealed. As long as the whole thing ends up being on that copper alignment is not absolutely important. Now, yes, I'm losing some room. Yes, it's going to look ugly. But when everything's said and done, I've got a sealed, airtight bag holding my product, so I don't care that you know that this particular seam terribly uneven. So again, going somewhere for one reason or another, I don't want my nuts to get all wet. So again, I lay the bag in there, make sure that the whole bag's over the copper, make sure that my food goes all the way into the vacuum sealing area. This time it's dry. I leave it on dry. I'm going to do vacuum seal. You see the bag draw its vacuum. This time, because the food is a dry source, it draws the vacuum quite a bit longer, so it can try to pull as much air out of there as possible. Now there are some things, fresh fruit, blueberries, which is a fresh fruit of course, but there are some things that you don't want to pull all the air out of. You just want to pull a small vacuum. Do moist, even if it is a dry product. It's not going to hurt it at all. All it's doing is a couple seconds less of that full vacuum, but when it's done, now I've got a sealed airtight bag. I can get this wet. I can sit there, you know, peanuts. You can go online and find the average length of time that you're adding to the life of these foods or these perishable foods, but typically you're looking at 10 times the amount of time. So if you throw, let's say, some beef jerky in there, some fresh beef jerky, not the stuff that you buy in bags, you know, typically 2 or 3 days after you open it. Well, one, you can portion these out before you go on your trip, and then every bag that you open is going to have that 2 or 3 days after you open it kind of moment. But you can, if they're refrigerated and they're vacuum sealed, you could actually buy those 2 weeks ahead of time, bring those on your trip, and they'd be just about as fresh as they would have been if you had bought them just that day. Third thing I'm going to vacuum seal, you know, and this is the bottom of the pre-made bag that they had, so it's already sealed. But I do a lot of gardening. So I get my own seeds every year when I'm done gardening, and then at the end of the year I'll end up with seeds that I have to sit on, and I can just sit on them in a mason jar, and I can use the mason jar sealer, but the mason jar takes up a lot of room for my seeds. So a lot of times what I'll do, if I'm trying to send one of my friends some of the onion seeds that I grew this year, because the onions were very good. I had a fair amount of seeds at the end of the year, because after I let a couple of the plants go to flower instead of harvesting the seeds, I ended up with enough seeds to be able to seed my whole garden for 2 more years, and then still also have enough to share with a friend or two. But basically all I do, again, would have probably used a slightly larger bag. But unlike a canning jar, I can send this through the mail. I can send this with somebody else. It can sit in the back seat of my car. Again, dry food because there's no moisture in there. Vacuum the heck out of it. It'll self-seal as soon as it hits that secondary level of vacuum. Again, it only has, you know, 2 settings. A moist setting where it pulls out a fair amount of the air and then seals it. And then the vacuum seal setting 2 is going to pull out most of the air, and then go to the high setting, pull out more air, and then seal it. It can't do that with wet produce. It can't do that with smushy produce, because that level of vacuum right there, that is pretty darn tight. You know, but again, now I could sit there, throw that in the mail. If the mail gets damaged, if the mail gets dented, bent, crinkled, you know, this container's not going to have any of those seeds fall out. More importantly, in my situation, I'm going to throw that on my little cart for all my gardening next year and for the following spring. And then those seeds, I don't have to worry about some dirt getting on there, it getting old or rotted. I also don't have to worry about the mites and bugs that are on the seeds, because they grow outside. There's no oxygen in there for them, so there's no more bug activity in there. You know, again, so they have the pre-bought bags, the sample bags that come with it, pre-bought sizes that you want, or you can just get, you know, a couple different sizes of polytube. Polytube is basically, again, just a one-sided, or sorry, a big long tube that doesn't have any seals on any side yet. You decide what size you want. You slide that cutter across, and it makes a beautiful cut for you. You sit there, you seal your one end, Real simple again. Nothing difficult about the sealing side of it. Just going to hit seal. Seals quite a bit faster. Once the light stops sliding across, I've got a sealed side. Now I've got a brand new bag. Bag sized for what I want to put in there. And that's basically how you do it. Thanks again for watching the video. Hopefully this helped out for you. Again, this is the Inkbird Plus, which is basically the same as just the Inkbird, but it came with a couple canning jar accessories. Thank you much. Bye.